Not oil and vinegar, not chocolate and peanut butter. That's it, not peanut butter and jelly, right? Awesome, great. Well, standing room only here, huh? Nice to see everybody. Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is Daniel.
Hi.
And we appreciate the opportunity to speak to you folks. And so we're going to get into it, but before we kind of dive in, I want to set the stage. So I've had the pleasure or opportunity of working across a wide variety of business models and verticals over my time, and one of the most exciting and fun is a marketing to sales model. It's also one of the most challenging for a variety of reasons. I joined National Debt Relief, and we'll talk a little bit about the company in a second, less than 2 years ago. Our business model is helping people get out of debt. So we act as an agency for the consumer, and we negotiate directly with their creditors to help them get out of debt, significantly reduce what they owe, and get them out of debt a lot faster than other options like a bankruptcy, personal loans, things like that. We have a large sales team, and marketing's job is to deliver volume and leads and things like that to our sales team. And so while I wanted to have this conversation and talk about alignment, I felt it was very apropos to do it in a unique way and provide a point of view that's kind of unified. Hence, my colleague Daniel Wingard is joining me on stage. So while we fought behind the scenes for hours on end about what to say here, I'm kidding, we thought it would be really neat to kind of give you a joint perspective on how to create that alignment.
Yeah, I'm Daniel Wingard. I've been with National Debt Relief about 6 years. Cool thing is I started as a salesperson, so I really get the whole stack perspective. And I think that the opportunity to work closely with Jeff since he's been with us has been a joy, because I think that where previously we were facing the exact problem we are now talking about, we've actually found a lot of alignment. We've actually found a place together. So happy to be here, happy to share.
All right, let's dive in. So really the first question is, why is it so hard to get this kind of alignment? And what are we going to do about it? So let's start with what the problem is, Daniel.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah. So most will agree that if you are in marketing or you're in sales, that alignment is a good thing. So the what and the why are typically not the problem. It's the how that seems to get us stuck. And we're going to talk about why we get stuck here. The first is, like I said, what aligning sales and marketing will drive better results. I don't think there's any disagreement around that. And those better results will benefit the organization and benefit the customer.
The secret, of course, is in the how, because if it was easy, you just do them because you know there's a benefit. Cool thing is, hopefully we've got some insight on the how. So before we get there, but let's talk about why. Where did we get to get here? Why is this problem there? And I have a tough question. Is it actually a problem? Or is it just an aspect of the relationship between our teams?
So before we dive in, I want to provide a little bit of a perspective and in sort of an illustration. So I joined National Debt Relief, like I said, a little less than 2 years ago, and I was making my way around the halls and talking to folks on the marketing team. And I was having a conversation with the marketing director on my team, and we were talking about something basic like email marketing and remarketing. And in that context, we're there to assist or lift sales support. And I said, so who do you partner with? Who do you talk to? Who do you collaborate with on the sales side? The answer was, we don't typically work with sales. I nearly fell out of my chair. I'm like, are you kidding me? And that's when I realized we really had to address this problem.
Unfortunately, Jeff's anecdote isn't unique, because when he came to me after working with us for a while and came across this message, well, hey, sales doesn't need help. We're a well-oiled machine. We've been doing this for years. What can you possibly bring to the conversation? So I think that's the first inkling that there may be an opportunity.
So, the problem is one of silos and these constructs, but the interesting thing, if you step back and you think about it, is they don't just grow on their own, they're manufactured and they're facilitated by a variety of things. Oops. The first is obvious. It's departmental constructs. I assume everybody here works in a marketing department, and you have a sales department, and you have a technology team, and you have a finance team, and that's the way we're organized in most companies today, right? And they're necessary for sure, but they absolutely do, promote silos, and they do promote a little bit of insularity.
Go ahead.
Second.
Yeah, so that's fine. Of course, we have to have different departments, but one of the major reasons we have differences in departments and how we treat them is we have different goals. If you're in marketing, you may be measured on the number of opportunities you can provide your client, sales. If you're in sales, you may be looking at the opportunities you get and saying, how actionable are these opportunities? So your language around opportunities is going to be necessarily different than marketing. So there's this kind of built-in difference of goals. I like to think that these are actually all part of a customer journey, and maybe that if you look, just zoom out a little bit, you can see that opportunities become, actionable opportunities become deals. And so as opposed to disparate, they can be go together. The second is actually one that's a little bit, or third, is a little bit unique to us, but I got to imagine that some of you in here have had this as well. You can go on to the next element.
Oops, didn't render very well.
Well, the word is obfuscation of information, and really what it is the complexity of taking data that may be easy for business analysts to dig through. It may be easy for your analytics squad to put together, your dashboards might show you. But actually, as a consumer inside the department, sometimes the data is not clear. It's not clear what it's telling you. So you have to kind of really think about that data, but the data that Jeff sees in his inbox, that data that I see in my inbox may not even say the same thing, or worse yet, they may say the same thing, but we may interpret them differently. So the fourth element here is about language. I'm a language guy. Actually, I'm here visiting my sister and her spouse. They're both in the applied linguistics department at SFSU. So language is in my family, but for me, language is it defines how we look at the world. And when my world is sales and everything is, again, unique sales jargon, efficiency, production, conversion, I build my worldview around those sets of language terms. Whereas marketing, you guys have your CPAs and your CPLs, and you're looking at a very different set of measures that define how you communicate within your team. So even if those things can mean something to sales, they're typically held internally as conversation between a marketing team. Conversations in sales may be around successes and deals. These are things that may not share across the line to marketing. So the language itself can actually impose a barrier of kind of free-flowing communication and trust.
And the last, and I'm just going to say it, it's ego. So, I grew up and I was indoctrinated, going to business school and working with great marketers, that the only way is a marketing-led organization. It's the only way to success. Sales-led, it's too short-term, it's too transactional. Product and tech-led, you're always just building stuff that has no consumer use. The only way to go is a marketing-led organization. And what does that do? That breeds hubris, that breeds ego, and all of that kind of stuff. And we all buy into it to a certain extent, but the choice does not need to be binary. I'm here to tell you today that a hybrid approach, that unifying your marketing and your sales structure will deliver better results than that bifurcation or that insularity.
So before we move on, I want to go back to an idea I discussed earlier. We all think this is a bad thing. We're starting this conversation with the idea that silos are bad or that difference is bad. I disagree. I actually think there's a tremendous benefit in there being a tension between sales and marketing. Jeff has different goals than I do. Sales teams in general may have different responsibilities, which are totally different than the way that he can judge his team. If there's a conversation around healthy tension, healthy push and pull, we all get better. We actually push ourselves to improve. Some of the best stuff that Jeff's marketing team has done is brought a new review process to the way we've done things for a long time. Gosh, new blood can be helpful sometimes. So I don't want to present this as a negative. I want to represent it as a continuum. There are benefits, there are drawbacks, but when you have good communication, you get to decide what drawbacks and advantages you can derive from those silos. So we can go ahead and move on to a big one.
And I'll just make one more note about what Daniel's saying. So as you're striving for alignment, what we're saying is that it's important and that it's impactful, but you don't want to create an echo chamber.
Yes.
That healthy tension is necessary. Iron does sharpen iron. So you can't lose that. And we've tried not to lose that in the process of creating stronger alignment. So we'll move on.
Great point.
Okay, so what does alignment look like? Sorry, this thing is, I'm not even sure where I'm supposed to point it. There we go. So the first, and there's 6 key takeaways here, and we'll leave this up at the end and we'll have some time for Q&A. This may seem obvious. It's got to start at the top. What does that look like? So it is a meeting of departmental leaders. It's C-suites, it's SVPs, it's EVPs, it's MDs, whoever it is. They've got to get together, listen to each other, understand, confirm motivations, and shared interest. Part of that conversation needs to be an open discussion about vulnerabilities too. Because behind all of this and behind all of this, like this insularity and their silos, there's some vulnerability. And you got to get it out on the table. It's very, very important. You've got to establish common goals. We all want what's in the best interest of the company. We want what's in the best interest of the customer. And so getting to common goals is really, really important. And you've got to get to a point where you're mutually invested in results. Daniel talked earlier about language and communication and goals. There has to be that mutual investment. You got to walk away with a handshake, say this is what we're agreeing to and this is what we're going to do together as a team. And then to the last point that we made on the other slide, an agreement on not losing or not muting that radical honesty and transparency. Very, very important that you don't lose that in the process. Next one.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, you actually just described the next 5 items in your recap up top, but it doesn't just apply to the people leading the organization. It actually has to apply to all the constituent members of each team. Because if we just look at the leaders, if we just look at the C-suites, if we just look at the EVPs, we're missing out on the people who are doing the day-to-day. So I think that one of the key pieces is going a little deeper into listening. Basic concept, but it's actually the hardest thing to train. For people to actively listen, to understand what people are communicating, you have to know their language. You have to speak the same language. You have to understand where that language came from. There are terms inside of sales which don't mean anything to marketing. There are concepts that marketing has to use to talk to specialty vendors, like media companies and television providers, that sales has no knowledge about. And so kind of building a common set of language or establishing a shared lexicon is a great way to have some common core. Hey, Jeff, this is what this means. Here's how you can use it. And if you're a smart CMO, you're adopting that exact principle, recognizing that the audience that you're sharing with doesn't speak your language. And so instead of talking down to them, actually embracing their terminology, their lexicon, to engage them in your presentation. Why do I use this language? What does it mean to you? What is the context of your frame of thought given the kind of boundaries of what I do? So sharing language is a choice, and I think it really is something where you have to think about all people in the department. So if they aren't connecting to you through your language, they're finding reasons not to connect to you. which is exactly the problem. One of my favorite ideas here is mirroring. Very simple sales concept, but if you recognize that someone speaks a certain way, whether it's different than you or not, learn to live in their world. Be like them so that they can better associate with you. Jeff, will you kind of finish this because you have this great rule of 50 concept, which I'm going to steal from you later.
Yeah, early on in my career, I was talking to, believe it or not, a very great sales leader who talked about the rule of 50, which is you have to say something 50 times inside of an organization for people to get it. And so you got to be on point. You got to stay on your platform. Like one of mine at NDR was we have to build a brand. We're very transactional. We're in a commodity industry. Brand is what wins. And when you go and you start talking to people that have not been acculturated to something like what's a brand and what does it do for me, it's like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 wah. And so you can't say it once, you can't say it 2 times, you got to say it 50 times, over and over and over again. Why are we doing this and why is it important? And believe it or not, eventually it sinks in. So I highly encourage that sort of like line of staying on point and on platform.
Second is, we can move on, or third, really has to do with measurement. Because when we're talking about, again, language, I know I'm the language guy now, but when we're talking about measuring your stuff, your successes, your failures, you have a set of KPIs that are familiar to you. They have a set of language, success measures, KPI that are familiar to them. So one answer is find common success measures. Such a simple idea, but something that speaks of your success can also speak of success to someone else. We work with many different teams that, other than sales, and an original version of this, we talked about how we interface with all these other departments. And one of the most important ways is find meaningful success measures which cross the aisle, which transcend your unique area, and start engendering the value of those success measures among your team. So they don't just see it, again, as something that the top does, and oh, they have their brand. And no, we have our measures, and we have been successful in organizing and achieving these measures. So find harmony in measurement, because there's a lot of common ground there.
Next.
Go on. This is one of my favorite things, and it's actually one of the coolest things that I think we've seen success in. Products are not insular. Well, they can be, and they often are. They can also be shared. They can also be something that you do as a team. You can take folks from the marketing organization. You can take folks from the sales organization, or from a UX, a CX, a product team, a finance team, and you can integrate into shared project environments. Back to the rule of 50, more times you work together, the more likely you are to feel comfortable in that environment. The more I hear language from marketing, the more I'm able to interface with folks who have marketing expectations. By sharing projects, by building shared projects, you create a space where everyone is contributing themselves, their identities, their values, to a common goal. It means everyone's invested, everyone understands, and it actually gets a better goal because I get the expertise of a media expert and the expertise of a practical closer in the same environment, both offering their language, both offering their insight. Go on. Jeff, you take this one.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one because as marketers and as sales folks, we're constantly looking at data and sheets of numbers every single day. And those things don't have a human element to them at all. So one of the things that we've instituted since I've been at National Debt Relief is actually doing joint participatory call listening. And what we've done, and this is a good crystal example of going beyond the numbers and getting to the human side, is we'll take, if any of you do lead gen and advertising in the market, we'll look at, let's say we ran a TV ad, and then we'll listen to the call that came in off of that 800 number or from somebody filling out a form from Facebook or whatever. and we'll put the two things together. And what we'll do is we'll do that as a marketing and sales team. We'll get everybody together and we'll sit there and we'll critique it. What was that experience? Somebody saw this in the marketplace. They contacted us. We made promises, right? In our advertising and our marketing communications, did we hold them up? Did we live up to them or not? What could we have done differently or better? One of the most cool examples of that was we brought on a new partner within the last 3-4 months. And I remember talking to this partner, and this was a elderly demographic that we were getting like a warm call transfer campaign stood up with this partner. And I kept looking at the numbers and they weren't backing out, and I'm like, well, what's going on? So we actually sat down and we listened to these calls, and it was a holy smokes moment. Like, knew that they were elderly, knew that they were lower income, but until you actually start to sit there and listen to it and have everybody, including our sales partners, put a magnifying glass up to it, all it looked like is it wasn't backing out and we didn't know why. And so going through that process of getting human, going beyond the numbers and doing it together has yielded some of the most fantastic results that we've seen since I've been here. Highly encourage it.
Think it worked the first time?
No.
No.
No, actually the first time
Rule
it
of 50.
felt like an assault, right? Like, why are we doing this? The first time actually was, we're already doing that. And I'm like, well, can we do it together? Oh, you want to do it together? And then I got an email with a bunch of links to calls that had already been listed. No, can we actually do it together live and see what happens? And the outcome that we've had, the improvement's been massive.
Back to the ego, right? So
Yeah.
there is the, of course, we've got a well-oiled machine. Everything's perfect.
Yeah.
But,
Yep.
but when you actually expose your vulnerabilities, when you actually allow people to step in and create, distanced critique, and you're open to it, you can find all kinds of great new opportunities.
Yeah.
And so we're really rethinking some of how these campaigns are structured, how sales agents are being trained, how marketing campaigns are being developed around this communication. So it's the synergy of having both sides in the talk that gets you to, well, common experience and actually a better product.
Yep. And so the last takeaway. I know this is going to sound simple, but we don't do it all the time. Celebrate your wins together. Celebrate your successes. Do the little things. Start having dinners together. Start getting to know each other as human beings outside of like the meeting rooms. Go out for drinks. Go to the movies together. Whatever it takes. But that rapport building, it engenders trust. It sounds simple, but you wouldn't believe how often people are like, oh, we don't really do that. We don't celebrate. We don't take that victory lap together. We actually, for the first time last year, again, sounds stupid simple, we did a holiday Christmas dinner with sales and marketing. And what I heard was, wow, we've never done that before. And I'm like, why, right? So it's those little things, that little touch that can make a big difference.
And it's not always easy, especially now because our company is fully remote. None of us work in an office. It's optional for some. That means flying everyone out and investing, and companies showing investment in the value of your community, the value of your collaboration. And that speaks very strongly to the people who are being celebrated. And it isn't just, again, leaders. It's everyone inside the organization has to be honored, has to be recognized, to reach across and say, wow, that email you put together was brilliant. Not my direct report, maybe I don't have much to do with that person, but if I offer that olive branch, if I offer that encouragement, it encourages a kind of a network of positive energy and feedback. So it's really one of my favorite things we do.
6 simple takeaways, 6 things that we've found that work, that have helped us, that are improving results. And we have a little less than 6 minutes, I think, for any kinds of questions. So that's the end of the formal presentation. Questions?
Sure. Thank you.
How do you avoid stepping on each other's toes?
Well, it happens. You wanna take that one? I'll
Yeah,
jump on.
totally. How do
Jump
we
on your
avoid
toes?
So I think that ego is a key of that, right? So if we operate in a kind of a combined environment and we don't acknowledge people's egos, or we only acknowledge our own ego, we step on each other's toes all the time. But if we recognize that we're specifically deciding to interface, you take careful steps. Maybe I do go over and step on Jeff's toes and say, hey man, this idea you had, but I do it knowing that I've got to talk to him tomorrow. So I do it with as much humility as I can. And actually one of my favorite kind of attributes that this has taught me is be more humble. Always recognize someone else has an interest. Even if I'm always right, it doesn't matter. Okay, I am always right. It does matter. We're going to give it to Jeff. No, but even if you are someone who's always right, you always have the best answer. I can't trust anyone else. It means even if they have a better answer, you're never going to even look for it. So keep your mind open. Suppress the ego. Stay humble so that when I do come over to say, hey, you know, this project didn't go as well as it could have. Here are some suggestions. Jeff isn't like, oh man, there's another sales just coming in to tell us what to do. He actually knows he's got a collaborator who's going to help build that next step.
Yeah, and it does go back to the vulnerabilities thing. Like everybody's got an ego to a degree, but one of the things that I've tried to make clear, hopefully, is come on, bring it, right? You got something to say. If there's a critique,
Bring it.
Bring it over here. We want to hear from you. In fact, I'll say this usually at all hands and other meetings. Marketing is a team sport, and ideas and critiques come from all corners of the organization. So if you can get your leaders to be egoless or to be vulnerable or to say, have an open posture, it goes a long way towards diffusing that as a problem.
Yeah. Great question. Thank you.
Yeah.
If say there's a, this might be for sales, but, or either, say there's a problem that someone from either the marketing or sales side feels like is an absolute problem and needs to be fixed immediately and is freaking out about it. A good example would be you sell a software platform and you have no Mac platform, but on your website, there's people sitting in an office yucking it up on a Mac computer, right? And sales says, hey, we got into the sales cycle because this company's interested in it. We got through, intro, discovery, getting ready to formalize a meeting, and all of a sudden they find out we don't do Mac stuff.
Yeah.
So they come to you and say, take that off the website immediately. So some sort of problem like that, how do you address things where it's like, well, stop, I need help with this?
Well, I can say for sure, we never have any emergency
Never.
or anything unexpected come
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
So we will not be able to. No, of course we do. This happens all the time. And it comes to a number of principles. It isn't, and this is where it actually, the collaboration extends way beyond just sales. Because this is where we're talking about the investments of the finance department, right? Looking towards investing in new products. And something Jeff is a big advocate for is kind of a RICE analysis. How many people will this benefit? What is the impact if we actually get it done? Going through that model and saying, hey, is this something that's worth stopping everything for and changing direction? Or is it something kind of irritating that we don't love about our website? That weird red swirly thing that nobody knows what it is? Can we get rid of it? Is it worth the 15 hours of development time to remove it? Or maybe can we put that off until next month? I think that de-escalation is a big part of the success for handling these kind of crises. Yep. In creating what is the actual context? How dire is this? Because to you, as the head of customer service, it might be dire because you're getting thousands of calls. But to sales, you're like, I don't care, I don't get anyone, I'm not dealing with it. Right? So understanding how dire is the circumstance and create a response that's appropriate given that level. Acknowledging that sometimes something that feels exigent isn't. False urgency.
Yes, there you go. False. We talk a little bit
Stole his
about
word.
Yes, false urgency. Exactly. Good question. Others?
All right.
It's actually more of a comment. Curious what you would think about it. We don't actually look at it as sales and marketing. We're the go-to-market team. And I have found that changing that narrative, we still have our KPIs, but we are measured as a go-to-market team. And what I remind my marketing team and my sales counterparts is sales cannot be red, or marketing can't be green if sales is red.
Yep.
And that is if you are in your MBRs, your QBRs, and marketing's like, and we did this, and we did this, and sales has missed all their numbers. Kind of do need to have some of the same goals and presenting them together. So that's just a...
Yeah, you're in an evolved model, which is wonderful. I'd love to be able to get there someday. I think some organizations are more ready for it than others. But you're absolutely right. Regardless of your org construct, we don't celebrate successes as a marketing team if they're failing. We just don't, right? And by the way, my numbers don't look good if they're failing anyway. And so we could say, well, top of the funnel or unaided awareness went up by blah, 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 blah.
Hey.
And our ownership says, I don't care. Where's the revenue, right? So yeah, it's 100% spot on.
Totally.
So we avoid doing that at all costs.
All right. Jeff,
Yeah.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it.